So this presentation is designed to help you get ready and to consider the things that you need to prepare in order to enter into the job market. I want to sit back and give you a little bit of the current state. According to Money Magazine in 2013, recent college graduates should expect that it's going to take them between 3 and 9 months to find a job. What that means for you is if you're graduating in May, don't wait until May to start the job hunt. Give yourself a couple of months lead time so that you can get your resume out there, apply for the right jobs, get some interviews under your belt, because nobody wants to be in that position where you're feeling really desperate and you're having to scramble. It tends to put the job seeker in a really bad spot. So with this type of information, you can start thinking forward and where you need to go for your career path. A Gallup poll of June 2013 said that 70% of Americans don't like their jobs. And I really considered this as I started putting together the next part of the course for you, because I want to ensure that my students are finding the positions that they are looking for, not that they have to take. And there's a big distinction. And this is a huge indicator. According to Forbes magazine in March of 2014, compared to 2010 when we were really at the height of the economic bust, more Americans are quitting their jobs now more than any other time since that occurred. And that's an indicator that's really positive for you in the job market. It means that Americans feel that there are more jobs opening up. They're feeling less tied to one single position out of economic security. So that movement in the market means that there are jobs out there. So these are all great things to know going forward. If you're like me, you grew up in an era where when you first started your job search, you went to the Sunday classifieds and you typed up letters and you mailed them to each position that you wanted to apply for. But as the internet really picked up steam, what we found are that there became these websites that most of us are familiar with, the Monsters, the Career Builders, the Craigslist, that type of thing. This is where a lot of people tend to go. And if you've spent any time looking for a job using these websites, one of the biggest issues is the amount of spam that you get in your inbox. A lot of get a degree online, or it might, be positions that aren't even relevant to the field that you're looking in. This is not to suggest that you can't find a job using these tools. However, there are better tools out there that many of you may not be familiar with. So what I want you to do is kind of break away from the reliance on these sites as much and start considering others, like this. Indeed is a wonderful tool. It is like the Google of job searches. So Indeed will search on private job boards, industry-specific job boards, company websites, and you can really go in there and play around with your search terms in terms of how far from a certain geographic area you're willing to travel. Dice tends to focus a lot for the IT industry. The Ladders used to be a website that catered only to top-level executives, and some of you are a little more advanced in your career paths. They've loosened that, and so for those of you who have some experience under your belts, that might be a website that you would like to look at. A lot of the reading that I've been doing lately is saying that Simply Hired is really making a comeback in terms of what it's able to produce for the job market, so that's another good website. And I just learned this week that the Glassdoor has changed its platform. That used to be a website that just reviewed companies for job seekers. What are other people who've worked there or are currently working there saying about the company? And so I spent some time on there this morning, and it's a fantastic job site. I highly recommend it. If you're somebody who's interested in nonprofit work, I recommend that you check out idealist.org. It is a website catered only for individuals looking for the nonprofit sector jobs. If you would like to work for the United States government as a civilian in any capacity, the website you want to look at is usajobs.gov. And two places that I find a lot of individuals tend to overlook are industry-specific job boards and professional organization websites. A lot of times we may run across something that's very industry-specific. Let's say, for example, a job board that is catering to electrical engineers or people in the electrical field. But companies hire individuals who are accountants because they need someone to run their accounting departments. They need marketing professionals. They need technical writers. As a matter of fact, I found my last job in the field using an industry-specific job board for people in the information technology systems area. So don't neglect the fact that even though you might think that the company or the organization, or in this case the job board, is targeting a very specific skill set, those companies still need individuals individuals who perform a lot of the job functions that you are looking to enter into. And the one thing that I find that students are very unfamiliar with are professional organizations in their field. Now, we're going to spend a little more time targeting that specifically later on. But most professional organizations have private job boards where companies are advertising job openings only to individuals in that field. And if you think about it logically, that's a great strategy for a company, because then you weed out all the individuals who are just dumping their resume as fast as they can, who probably aren't very qualified for a position. This way they're targeting professionals in the field. As students, I'm going to highly encourage you to seek out professional organizations in your industries. And just start with a generic Google search, professional organization for HVAC technicians. I have not found a profession where there is not some form of a professional organization designed to help the development of those individuals in those fields. And as students, you often will have free or reduced significantly, like $10-20 for an annual membership into these organizations, and you will have access to them. Also, here on campus, we have some chapters of different professional organizations. I believe that we now have a student chapter of NECA. And these are great ways for you to start your professionalization, to network, but also you have access to their job boards. If you know of an individual company that has a great reputation, or if maybe you do a Google search for the top 20 employers in Canton, Ohio, and you make a list of the ones that employ the most individuals, make a habit of checking their personal, individualized company website for their job openings. You might want to earmark every 2 weeks. On Mondays, you're going to check to see what's coming open. But those are also a great resource. Sometimes they get overlooked. Maybe they're not publicly advertised as much. And lastly, LinkedIn. And if you're not familiar with LinkedIn, you're going to become familiar with LinkedIn because we're all going to build a profile. But it's like Facebook for professionals. And it's the juggernaut that you can't get away from. I'm hearing from HR reps and recruiters that oftentimes when they know that they are going to have a position coming open, they will go to LinkedIn and search the profiles for people in their area that have those skill sets, and they will cold call them looking to see if they're looking for employment in the area. And who doesn't want a phone call asking if you're interested for a job that you didn't even know existed yet? That would be a wonderful opportunity. But LinkedIn also has a jobs section, and the more you put into your profile, the more you will get out of the job opportunities that it will generate for you. LinkedIn will look at your geography, where you've lived, where you currently live, and the jobs that you've held. Again, the more attention you put into that profile, and we're going to be spending a lot of time with that in the next week or so, the more you can get out of it. But don't neglect that there are also job opportunities that are listed through LinkedIn as well. I use this because it is something that I learned in trial and error in my own private life. If you're like me, you probably, when you sit down, you do your resume, it's all tight, it looks great, but now you've got to do those online application systems where you input everything over again, and it asks for things like the physical mailing address and the phone numbers and your supervisor names from all of your past employment. And what ends up happening is you have 8 different tabs open on the internet, and you're copying and pasting because you don't remember all that information. I have a folder on the desktop of my laptop at home. It just says job stuff, and nobody's ever going to see this, so you can make it look however you want. I just have a Word document where I put all that information there. I copy and pasted it straight into the document so that when I have to fill out those online systems, I don't have to go searching for all of it. It's right there in one place. Make sure you think about things like your education experience. A lot of times I find students neglect to include their Stark State information, that you're currently seeking a degree or a certification here, and also get your references together. Now, on those online systems in particular, they're going to ask for 2 different things: the name of former supervisors, and some of you are going to find, I'm certainly in this situation, that maybe you work for a company that doesn't exist anymore, maybe they closed, or your supervisors moved on, or you fell out of touch, you can't find them, you don't remember their name. It is always okay to put a human resources representative phone number there if that's the case. That's something to also consider. But in terms of your references, I want you to really consider who you use for your professional references. Do them the courtesy of always contacting them beforehand. find out what contact information they would like for you to list if they agree to be a reference. Do they want their personal information, say their personal email and phone number, or would they prefer their workplace? And this is always a good rule of thumb simply because people do move on in careers. Um, they could be someone like one of your professors, and we may not be here for the entire summer. Some people don't teach during the summer. And I would hate for you to find yourself in a situation where a potential employer reached out to a reference and they were not there or were unavailable or they couldn't make contact with them. Also, choose your professional references carefully. Ensure that they're individuals that can speak highly of you as a professional. So people like your professors, former supervisors, if you've done any volunteer work, a volunteer coordinator, those are all great individuals to list in terms of your references. But get their official names, their official professional titles, all of that information together before you sit down to start your job search. I'm going to highly recommend that my students always record the searches that they're doing. I'm going to show you an example of how I do it. And you have to take on that mindset of finding a job becomes kind of a new job for you. I know that everyone has these demanding life stressors. You have children, you have jobs, you have school. And so it's hard sometimes to carve out some quiet time. But when you're ready to enter in or move on in the professional market, you really have to dedicate some attention and time specifically to doing that. The advent of those online application systems became really tricky for me because if you've spent any time with them, you know they all ask for a username and password, and every single one of them is different. So I just built a little chart. It takes me about 30 seconds in Word, and this is just for your information, a reference point. I always list the position that I applied for, the company name, the date I applied, if they needed anything additional from me. And then in my little additional information column, I'll do things like add in what I use as my username and password. That way, the larger the company, the more often positions come open. So let's say this week there's a position open at one location, and 2 weeks later at a different location you want to apply to both. You can go right to the chart that you've made yourself. You've got it in your little job folder on your computer, and you can remember your username so that you don't have to redo everything. A student this week also pointed out that he found himself in a position where he forgot his username and password for a job system that he was applying through. And so he went to redevelop that material, and it wouldn't let him because it will only allow one profile per email. And since he couldn't remember that, he was locked out of the system and a potential job opportunity. So these are all some things to start getting your brains thinking about the job market and thinking about pursuing different professional opportunities. And hopefully this is an idea of how you can start getting organized before you actually move into the building of your resume and the material